Nutrigenomics Unveiled Frontier in Healthcare, organized by Bharati Vidyapeeth College of Pharmacy, Kolhapur. Now I would like to request Ms. Sonali Guru ma'am to introduce our guest speaker, Dr. Prafulla Chaudhary sir. Over to you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, one and all. I am thankful to Bharati Vidyapeeth College of Pharmacy, Kolhapur, for giving me this opportunity to introduce today's speaker. We are having with us an eminent personality, Dr. Praful Chaudhary sir, Assistant Professor, Department of Pharmaceutical Chemistry, Bharati Vidyapeeth College of Pharmacy, Kolhapur. He has completed his M.Pharm and B.Pharm in 2007 and 2005 from Bharati Vidyapeeth College of Pharmacy, Kolhapur. Sir has received Junior Research Fellowship Award by AICT, Delhi, India. Also, he has got Best Research Publication Award 2012 and Best Poster Publication Award 2012. Sir has 14 plus years of teaching and research experience and he has guided 13 M.Pharm projects. Sir is member of Association of Pharmaceutical Teachers of India and Maharashtra State Pharmacy Council. He also working as a reviewer for various international journals like Medicinal Chemistry Research, Bioorganic Medicinal Research, European Journal of Medicinal Chemistry Research. Additionally to his credit, about 100 plus publications in national and international journals. Sir has received research grant total 19 lakh as a principal co-investigator. With this brief introduction, I request to you, sir, to begin this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Am I audible clearly?
Yes, sir.
Screen is visible. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So shall I continue?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So thank you to the organizers for such a nice introduction, and um, I am also thankful to Dr. H.N. Morris sir, Dr. M.S. Bhatia sir, and Dr. F. Tambui sir, and all the organizing committee of this Atal FDP to giving me opportunity to share my views on computational simulations in nutrigenomic research. Now, first of all, I want to introduce all of you with the simulations, why these simulations are important in this upcoming era, and how these simulations can be used in a nutrigenomic research. Normally, when you see nutrigenomics, what is the nutrigenomics? Now, in these 2 to 3 days, you have incurred a number of definitions of nutrigenomics and how they are influencing by human bodies or human lifestyle, human, or we can say that how these nutrigenomics can be used for the prevention and treatment of disease. But when you see with the computational chemist point of view, or as computer simulators point of view, we only see a nutrigenomics in the two way, that nutrigenomics is the study of the interactions between our diet, our lifestyles, and our genes. Means when you see via computational chemist point of view, the interaction, how these uh, contains from our diet or food materials are interacting with our genes, and these interactions, how these interactions can be used for prevention or for the treatment of the diseases. So by this this interactive analysis, how they can be useful to controlling can be used for the controlling diseases or preventing diseases. Now, when you see typical principles which are associated with the nutrigenomics research or nutrigenomics, normally when you see a nutrigenomics as a point of view, when you see nitrogen as a point of view, these are the substances contained in the food. Just a minute. These are the substances which are contained in the food, either micro or macronutrients that can directly or indirectly affect the human genome through changes in its structure or gene expression. Now, under certain circumstances or in some individual, the diet can be an important risk factor for the development of number of diseases. Due to this interactive behavior of this micro or macronutrients, because when you see a biochemical point of view or chemical point of view, these micro or macronutrients are the chemical species. They can directly interact with the various interactions like hydrogen bond or a number of interactions which are chemical or chemical interaction with the genes, and they can change the overall structure of the genes or DNA or RNA, or the overall scenario in the gene expression can be changed. So these substances can affect the chemical nature or you can say that biochemical uh, uh, makeup of these systems via the chemical interaction. Now, some of these genes are regulated by active substance in the diet, probably which plays a crucial role in the onset or incidence or progression of or severity of certain diseases. Means these genes which are interactive with the which are showing interaction with the food materials or the nutrients from the food materials, they can be they can play a critical role in the onset or progression of the disease. So the by this way we can analyze or we can study the nutrigenomics, or this can be analyzed to controlling the progression of the disease, and the degree to which this diet influence the balance between health and disease may be depend of the individual genetic makeup. Means what? The how the particular individual can cope up with particular diet, or they can interact with their interactive behavior with the particular diet is typically based on this individual genetic makeup. So we can't say can propose a generalized interactive behavior for all the individuals, but they as each and every individual is has certain changes in their genetic makeup, their interaction with the food or food materials can be changed. But with these simulatory systems or simulations, we can analyze in up to a certain level how a particular chemical or chemical substance from the food material can interact with the genetic materials. Now, these nutrition interventions, after the analysis, this nutritional intervention is based on the knowledge of individual nutrition status and as well as the genotype, that individualized nutrition, and they can be used for this prevention, mitigation, or healing of the chronic disease. Means the analysis of this interactive behavior, analysis of the chemical interaction, or with this analysis or formulating a personalized nutrition or formulating a certain balanced nutrition, we can cope up or we can control certain disease progression or onset of certain diseases. Normally, when you see interactive behavior, or what are the typical interaction which a nutrient and a nutrient or and a genes can occur, or typical interaction which occurs between the nutrient and genes. Typically, these interactions are often classified into three basic categories. That is, the first is the direct interaction, then epigenetic interaction, and genetic interactions. Normally, uh, when you see the direct interaction, these direct interactions are nothing but the nutrients sometimes after interacting with the receptor behaves as a transcription factors, and that can bind with the DNA and acutely induce gene expression. Now, what are the epigenetic interaction? These epigenetic interaction are nothing but the nutrient that can alter the structure of DNA or histone proteins or chromatin, so that the gene expression is chronically altered. So this is a differentiation between a direct and epigenetic interaction. Means what? A direct interaction is nothing but the chemical substance which are available in the nutrient directly behaves as a transcription factor, which directly bind with the DNA and can change DNA. They can induce a acute gene expression. But in epigenetic interaction, they alter the DNA structures or part of that histone or chromatic material, so that the gene expression is chronically altered. Now, third is the genetic variations. Now, what happens in genetic variation? These are the common genetic variations. The single nucleotide polymorphization can alter the expression of or functionality of the genes. All these mechanisms that we have talked right now, that is direct, epigenetic, and genetic variation, can result into alter metabolism of an alter dietary requirement for the nutrition, and These may result into certain types of metabolic disorders or disease condition. So these are the basics of the just introduction of the nutrient genes interactions. Now, how these interactions are typically used in a drug discovery protocol. Now, I have shown a typical imaginary diagram on drug discovery protocol. Now, when you see this typical imaginary diagram of the drug discovery protocol, you can see a merging of a various of interdisciplinary substances or interdisciplinary of systems like biological systems, then complex computational systems, then chemical systems. So this drug discovery, or you can say that drug development process is nothing but a combined effort of all the people which work in these different types of domains. Means a chemical person can synthesize a chemical molecule, the biological person can analyze that molecule biochemically, then natural the people who work in pharmacognosy department can be used for the isolation of the natural compound from the natural sources. So this is a combined effort. So due to this involvement of the huge number of the people around these drug discovery protocols, the drug discovery normally takes a lot of time. Now, after that, a lot of time, and to influence that time behavior, the chemoinformatics is or simulatory behavior is coming into the market now. Now, when you say a chemoinformatics as a chemical is a definition point of view, when you say a chemoinformatics involves a gathering and systematic use of chemical information and application of these information to predict the behavior of the unknown compound in silico. Means how this chemoinformatics can be applied to this nutrigenomic research that we will discuss in later. But what happens exactly in a chemoinformatics? Now, how one can see chemoinformatics? When we dissect the word chemoinformatics, we come to point that chemoinformatics means gathering means this has to be done doing something with the chemical structures or chemical functions. Now, why we have to deal with these chemical structures or chemical functions? Because when you see a chemical point of view, or when you see a chemical, by its structural origin or by its bonding origin, this bonding or chemical nature or electronic nature of that particular chemical substance often regulates its properties. And these properties can be used for the application of that particular chemical. So for that, the chemoinformatics terms comes in existence, where the gathering and the systematic use of chemical information and this information is applied to predict the behavior of the unknown compounds in silico. How it is used, I will give some example, because one example, like in a nature there is a law, often we in a computational chemist field, often it's called as similar compound behave similarly or similars behave similars. Means, see, one particular, if a particular compound has a binding with particular receptor, it can show the similar structure or the compound which is derived by using that particular compound, or a compound which has a similar structure to that origin compound will be have ability to bind with that particular receptor. Means, due to the chemical similarity, it might show application similarity, or due to its chemical similarity, it has a similar property window and which can show similar types of application. So, keeping in mind these property or these properties of the chemical substance, the chemoinformatics comes into existence, where we can analyze or we can use the data which is already reported by a number of scientists, or reported for the number of chemicals, to analyze, to predict the applications of the compounds, or to analyze to or to predict the interactive behavior, or to predict the toxicological behavior of the unknown compound due to its similarity indices, due to its similarity property, due to its chemical similarity. It can have a property similar window which can show a similarity in its in its application domain. Now, up its application domain. Now we are moved towards a certain definite certain case, or we can say that a drug candidate. How a computational chemist is look after a drug candidate, or how a drug candidate can be seen by a computational point of view. Now, when you say a drug candidate as a computational chemist, we define the drug candidate as a ligand structure, a ligand structure which have ability to bind to its biological target. Now, what is the biological target? This biological target might be a protein, might be a genetic material, might be a receptor, might be an ion channel. Means what is a drug candidate by a computational point of view? A computational point of view, a drug candidate is a ligand, or it's a substance which have ability to bind with its biological target. Because uh, when you see a basic root of the drug discovery, how this computational discovery has started, they started with the hypothesis that a, a medicinal substance, or you can say a medicinal substance or a toxin, does not show its effect unless there is a biological counterpart. Means what? A drug substance or a toxin does not show its biological effect unless it has its own biological counterparts. Means what? If the biological target is not there and the chemical substance does not have a binding affinity or binding ability to bind with that particular biological target, it does not show any effect. So based on these two assumption, or based on these two concept, the drug candidate has been defined. Is that chemical compound or is a biological compound, or you can say that it's a substance which have ability to bind with the biological target, and this biological target may be from protein, or it may be an enzyme, receptor, ion channel, or genetic material. And by this binding, with this binding, it can initiate the its own effect, either by agonizing by agonistic effect, or by antagonistic effect, or inhibiting the biological target. Means what? It can trigger or initiate process by using this biological target, its agonistic effects, or by inhibiting that biological target via antagonistic effect. Means what? A drug candidate has ability. When we have to define a drug candidate, we have to consider two major effects. That is, it should have a biological target, and a biological target is there, it should have a sufficient affinity to bind with that particular biological target. Now, this is a basic definition of the drug candidate. Now, when you see a structural, when we attach a structural or conformational restriction to that that definition, we come to a conclusion that the drug candidate should have a complementary shape or complementary conformation to the ligand, to the protein active site. Means it it should have affinity to bind with the receptor or biological target, but it should possess a complementary structure or conformational to bind with that particular binding site. Unless it does not contain a complementary shape or complementary size, it does not bind with that protein's active site. Means it does not it not only require a typical type of affinity, but it should have a typical type of conformational complementarity to the proteins or biological targets active site. And after these two, the third terms comes, that is the interaction. Means it should have complementarity, it should have the affinity, but it should have a favorable interaction between, or it should show a favorable interaction between these two systems, that is the ligand and your biological target. And how it should show interaction, because interaction when it has a typical functional group which are attached to the side chain, or which are attached to the chemical structure. Means what? Ultimately, the interaction can be managed by the chemical structure, and this interaction may lead to the rigid binding with the receptor, and which can show a stabilized conformation, and which can result into the biological activity of that particular substance. So by this way, we can define a drug candidate. Now, up to this drug candidate, how nowadays drug discovery or in silico studies are ruling the market nowadays? Because in earlier stages, what happens, the the term biological target is often regulated after the after the effect of that particular chemical substance or biological substance has been reported. Means what? In early stages of the drug discovery, or early phases of the drug discovery, first the chemical substance is identified, then its effect is identified, then the possible mode of action is identified. Nowadays, what happens due to the change in the bioinformatics era or chemoinformatical era, what happens normally, the biological target has one is identified, and after identifying the biological target, after analyzing the binding cavity, the drug candidate has been developed. So nowadays, the selectivity and specificity in the drug candidate has been tremendously increased over the last 5 to 10 last 20 to 30 years. Now uh, due to this increase in the success in the drug discovery protocols or development protocols, that there are certain there are certain chances of failure also increase. Now, when you see a computational tools or how drug fails in the market, normally when you see a typical chart of that the failure chances of the failures, the normal drug failure is most of the times due to the pharmacokinetics, that is the poor pharmacokinetics. 39% of the drugs are failed in the market due to poor pharmacokinetics. Only 30% of the drugs are failed due to the poor efficacy, means the molecule shows excellent activity in the in vitro trials but fails in the in vivo. But the major issue which associates the failure of the drug is due to the poor pharmacokinetics. That is, you can say that animal toxicity also comes under the pharmacokinetic ADMET. So around the 50% of the drugs which are failed in the drug discovery protocol are belonging to this class, that is the poor pharmacokinetics. So nowadays there are certain protocols has been adopted by the various agencies which can analyze the clinical or pharmacokinetic behavior or the in silico pharmacokinetic behavior of the molecule in early stages of the drug discovery, and which can lead to the development of the uh, more efficacious drug molecule. Now, I will skip these two slides because we have already discussed. Now, to achieve the selectivity or specificity in the drug, or to develop a drug molecule with the you can say that the excellent pharmacokinetic or lesser toxic data, we have to deal with the three major aspects of the chemoinformatics. First, the three major aspects of the chemoinformatics includes: first is the experimental data, then model generation, and the prediction of the unknown compound. Now, what happens in this first major chemoinformatics, that is data acquisition and management? Now, basically, the major chemoinformatics data is nothing but it deals with the data acquisition and its analysis. Means what? The data which is available for the analysis of the chemoinformatics plays important role, because when you see a data acquisition or a type of data which is involved in the drug development process, or you can say that the chemoinformatics process, because when you see the basics of the chemoinformatics is often deals with the similar compound behave similarly. Okay, so and these similar compounds are analyzed based on the molecule which already reported, which has molecule which have reported properties, which are having reported biological activity, and based on these two based on that known activity data or known chemical property data, the unknown compound activity has been generated, or you can say that it has been will be changed. So the data type of data or data that data quality of the data often plays a wider role in the chemoinformatic search or chemoinformatic successes. After that comes the terminology data analysis. If data is correct, but the analysis tool is selected analytical tool is wrong, then we can not generate a correct output from the large number of data. So the information that has been used or tools which are used for the analysis also play the important role in this chemoinformatics success. And last is the informatical application. Means what? After the output, how it is applied. Normally, when we see a computational work, normally we often incur with the number of publication where the wrong tools was can be are used for analysis of particular data. The molecules from the n number of papers are collected for particular analysis. So these are the uh, wrong application of the chemoinformatical tools. So for a successful application of this chemoinformatical tool, we have to deal with these three major issues, that is the data collection, then data analysis, and its application. Now, let's move toward the major issue, major point of concern for our today's session, that is a simulation. How the simulation can be used for the chemoinformatics point of view, or you can say that the nutrigenomics point of view. When you see a simulation, what are the simulations? Simulation is nothing but the process to create an imitation of a real world system or physical object in a computer model. Means what? The simulation is nothing but a process to create an imitation of a real world or a physical object to a computer model. And it's not only deals with the generation of a model, but also it deals with the performing experiment to understand the behavior of the system, and to evaluate new strategies. What is a simulation? Simulation is a process to create an imitation of a real world system or a physical object to a computer model, and not only generating a model, but also performing experiment to understand the behavior of the system and evaluation of the new strategies. Up, and also it nowadays includes the observation of the event, processes, and properties and behavior of the system with the computer model. Means in last in 80s and in 70s and 80s, the simulations only deal with the you have to create a model of that particular system or model of the real world system. Means for example, when you see a drawing tools of chemical structures, means development of the ball and stick model of the, you can say that the benzene, then a space fill model of the benzene. That is a simulation. That is the process to generate a computer model of the real world system or a physical object to a computer model. But nowadays with the simulation we can perform experiment how that particular compound behave in a biological system or in a chemical system, and how we can modify that compound to for the betterment of the biological activity, that evaluation of the newer strategies. Also nowadays the simulations are way beyond that, that how that compound is continuously behaving, how it is showing particular type of activity, the processes, properties, and the behavior of the system can be modeled or can be analyzed or can be monitored with the simulatory system. So simulatory system nowadays is a bigger task, which means not only the generating a computer model of the real world system, but also it deals with the performing experimental systems or observing the event, processes, properties of that particular system. Means this via simulation we can generate a model, we can perform an experiment, and these results of these experiment can be correlated with the physical or physical uh, experimental processes. So with this simulation we can be this simulation can be used to generate or to develop newer strategies or to predict the behavior of the systems. So these are the different applications or the typical definition of the simulations. Now what happens in a simulation? Basically this pictorial diagram exactly shows what happens in a simulation. In a simulation the real world system is correlated or it's converted into a smaller representation of that system to a, we can assert that is a model that is typically based on three different concepts, that is simplification, abstraction, and assumptions. Means what happens in a simulation normally when you see a simulatory behavior of the protein. Now in a real world the protein has a n number of amino acids, but when you see in a docking process that huge protein can be analyzed with the computational tools very efficiently. How it is possible? Because the behavior of the carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen bond or the basic elements which are present in the protein systems are modeled in such a way that they can be shown a similar indices to that of a real system, and it is achieved with the help of the simplification process or simplification, abstraction, assumption. Means what? Here the real system is simplified or into simplified into informatical tools in a informatical way, and it is abstraction of the whole of the real system, and it can be shown with the certain types of assumption. Now what happens in the assumption? Here I will give certain example. In a carbon suppose in a modeling concept, when we have to generate a property of a huge number of molecules, like suppose we have to calculate the property of the 18 carbon containing system. So for each and every 18 carbon, we have to calculate own property. But in a simulatory system, the carbon bonded with the another carbon with the carbon carbon single bond, it has a definite value, or it is shown a certain types of assume that it has assumed to be have a certain limited values. With this assumption, these 18 carbon are simplified into a simpler form to a methyl probe, a simple carbon containing probe, and these are easily calculated. Means with this the real system can be changed to a model system with this assumption. So that's why this simulation are nowadays ruling the world. That artificial intelligence is running the show in the currently in the world with this simplification protocols. And with this simulation, we can model any system. We can model whole body nowadays. Whole body simulatory systems are there. Whole body that there are certain models which are shows ADME prediction with the help of the whole body simulation. So whole human body can be simulated with the help of this simulatory system or the computer based models. Now, how this simulation is typically carried out? Normally, when you say typical simulated system or process of the typical simulation, it starts with the definition of the system. Means what? Here we have to identify a system that to be simulated, that has to be simulated. Now that system has to be defined. Then we have to identify the model which can easily which can easily represent the system which is defined. That we have to formulate a model. After that, we have to give data to that formulated model, that so that the formulated model shows similar behavior to that of the system in the in a real world. So after that, the data has been data has to be given. Then that data has to be translated in that particular model. Then verification comes, experimentation, and then documentation, which means every simulated system is a validated tool from a real validated representation of the real world system. That's why nowadays the simulatory systems are showing a you can say that uh, highly uh, true values to that of a real world system due to this validated documentary systems. Now here we comes to our next main point, that how this computational simulatory tool, which are the computer simulation tools can be used in the current research. Normally, when you see a basic modeling strategies which are used in the simulatory systems, these are defined with the help of two different systems, that is a ligand and receptor. Now, why these two systems has to be considered? Because when you see uh, interactive behavior, the interactive behavior is always a binary system where one is a macromolecule, another is a micromolecule. Now, these micro and macromolecules are often classified into receptor and ligand. Normally, when you see a receptor, they are always a macromolecule containing n number of amino acids, and they are often classified into unknown and known. How, why they are called as unknown, I will explain you afterward. And the macromolecules are also known as ligand because they have a smaller size to that receptor structure. Normally, these two receptor and ligand can be applied to two protein structures. Means one protein becomes a macro, another protein becomes a micromolecule because with their size differentiation. So these receptor and ligands are often called as a micro and micro due to their side differentiation. Why the receptor is also known as a known and unknown? Because when you see a receptor structure, normally there are a number of receptors are present which are present in the human body, and this receptor has a typical protein amino acid sequence, and based on that amino acid sequence, their structures are developed. But there are certain types of receptors, just like a G protein coupled receptor, which are transmembrane receptor, where the structure is present across the biological membrane. So the development of such a structure is quite difficult one. Development of the structure from these transmembrane receptor, the two structures is cannot be predicted. So that's why these receptors are often known as the unknown receptor, where the only amino acid sequence is known, and based on that amino acid sequence, the own protein structures are developed, and these protein structures are often used for the interactive analysis. Now, keeping aside this unknown receptor, we will be discussing first about the known receptor, where the typical protein structures are known. These protein structures are easily downloaded from the pre-protein databases, and after download of this, after getting this protein structure from the pre-protein databases, they are often used for the drug discovery protocols. Now there are certain drug discovery protocols which are strictly used for the known protein, like de novo, virtual screening, that is the, we can say, the docking, that is the rational drug discovery protocols. Now when we comes to the unknown receptor, where the protein structure is not known, what happens in that particular receptor where the protein structure is not known? Here comes the homology modeling. Now what is the homology modeling? Homology modeling is a development of the protein structure based on the amino acid sequence of the known protein. Means what? Here the similarity behavior is taken into account. Means what? Here the protein structures are generated on the basis of the known protein structure with the simple amino acid mutation or amino acid modification, so that the newer structure can be generated. That is known as a homology modeling. Now if a protein structure is unknown, then we can go for a homology modeling. Then we can go for a docking type of modeling strategies. If now we can, if protein structure are known, we can directly go for a rational based drug discovery protocols. Now here comes the ligand technology or ligand concept, where here also the known and unknown concept are there. The known concept means the chemical structure of the known ligand. Means what? If a molecule, if a protein structure has a certain types of native ligands or native molecule which have ability to bind with that particular receptor, then we can directly develop our own molecule based on the structure of that particular molecules, and based on the QSAR and pharmacophore modeling, that is the tools which are often used in silico simulations, we can develop molecules and which have ability to bind with that particular receptor. If ligand structures are unknown, then we have to go for a HTA, that is high throughput screening or combinator library design. Means what? Here a smaller fragments which have ability to bind with that particular receptors are identified, and these fragments are merged to develop a newer structure. So that is a strategy which are commonly used when ligand structures are unknown. Now in that ligand structure are unknown. So we are moving toward the first modeling strategies or in silico tools which are commonly used and which has a tremendous application in drug discovery, in polymer calculations, in phytochemical discovery, in toxicological analysis also. That is a molecular docking. Now this docking terminology is commonly used in everywhere. Nowadays we can I think there is a difficult to get a paper where the molecular docking is not attempted. Now normally there are a number of papers which are showing interactive behavior and in the interaction between two unknown molecules, to protein molecules, to ligand structures. We can also analyze the drug polymer interaction with this docking. So what is basically docking? Now when you see by this picture, a docking is nothing but finding the best matching between two molecules. This is all about docking. Docking is not, there is nothing different in a docking, that docking other than finding the best matching between two different molecules. That is the basic docking output. That is finding the best matching complex between two different molecules. Now when you see a docking definition, a docking refers to an ability to position a ligand in an active site or designated site of a protein and calculate the specific binding affinity. What is the docking? Docking is nothing but an ability to position a ligand in an active or designated site of a protein and to calculate the specific binding affinity. Normally, when you say a docking algorithm, these docking algorithms can be used to find ligands with binding conformation at particular receptor site close to the experimentally determined structures. This docking is nothing but the ability to bind or position a ligand in an active or designated site of a protein and to calculate the specific binding affinity. And these docking algorithms can be used to find ligands and binding conformation at a receptor site close to the experimentally determined structures. Means what? The docking algorithms can be used to identify molecules or small molecules which can bind with a multiple proteins or which can bind with a single proteins. Means what? These docking algorithms can be used to identify ligand structures which have ability to bind with the receptor and to generate the interactive behavior and ultimately to show biological effect. So docking can be used to analyze the biological potential of any molecule or to analyze the biological binding potential of any molecule or any chemical substance. There are a number of docking programs which are commonly used like Gold, Autodoc, Ludi, Higgs. Most of the times we can see the Autodoc and Ludis are commonly used. Now, what happens in a docking exactly? Now, when you see a docking attempts to find the best matching between two molecules. Now, normally, when you see a via key and lock and key model, docking is nothing but to finding a right key for a lock. Now, when you see a docking, what is a exact meaning? What is the exact output of a docking? Docking, uh, it is known that docking can give best matching between two molecules. But when you see had in a deeper analysis to a docking protocol, when two biological molecules interact, when two biological molecules interact, the docking can give if these two molecules have ability to interact. If they are interacting, what is the energy of the interaction? Means what? Docking does not give only the right key for the lock, but also it can give a stable key for that particular lock, which is explained or which can be given in terms of the energy of that particular complex. Means what? The docking can be used for the identifying the right key for the lock, but also a right stable key for that particular lock. Means what? Docking can give a stable matching between two different molecules. So this docking has a typical goal that it has to it ha, is to be able to search a database of molecular structure and retrieve all those molecules which have interactive behavior with the query protein or query target structure with minimum of the energy and maximum of the stability. That is the common goal of a docking. So docking is nothing but is not only deals with the finding the best between the two different structure, but also it gives a best matching with the stable conformation or the highest stability between these two structures. Now, when you say with the biological point of view, why this docking has a tremendous uh, application or it has important uh, or it is so much important in the biological system. When you say high docking process or docking principles, now this docking is of extreme relevance in the cellular biology. Now think upon that why it is has important or it is important because it is has a high degree of relevance in the cellular biology where the functions of the in a cellular biology where in a cellular biology, number of functions are accomplished by proteins interacting with themselves or other molecular components. Means what? See in a biological process, in a biochemical process, which normally happens in the human body, where the number of functions are normally accomplished by proteins interacting between themselves or other molecular components. Means what? Simply see the example of the calcium channels, which interact with the calcium channels calcium ion with the entry of the calcium ion they get opens and all the process triggers in the cardiac systems. Similarly to the beta receptor where the catecholamines binds and the all the chemical process are triggered. Means what happens in the biological system? The majority of the biological functions which governs the human body are deal with the binding of a particular system with the another system. So similarly in the docking, the same way of process has been handled where the two different molecules are interacted. Means it shows high degree of relevance to the cellular biology so that a number of biological functions can be simulated with the docking protocols, means how a particular drug can bind with the receptor in vivo can be in silico modeled, can be in silico simulated with the computer model of that particular drug and that particular receptor, so that this docking has extreme relevance in the cellular biology. Now, second is it is a key to the rational drug design. It is a key to the rational drug design. Means what? In a rational drug discovery process, often the structure of the biological receptor or biological target it has to be considered. Means what? A number of molecules are discovered on the basis of the biological uh, target structure or the structure of the biomolecules, so that the selectivity and specificity can be achieved. So in the docking, this docking protocol is a key component in the rational drug design, because due to its high degree of external relevance in the cellular biology. Also, it depends upon the target protein structures. And with this docking protocol, we can easily find the inhibitor to the target protein structure. And with this, we can easily analyze their ability, and we can model the older drugs to newer and newer indications. So this docking has... Hello? Hello?
Dear participant, please mute your mic. It's making disturbance. Sir, please continue.
So it has been the key to the rational drug design. So we can use the output of the docking for the modification of the new older molecules. We can use for the development of a newer chemical structure. We can use for the minimization of the toxicological potential of the molecules. So this docking process or this docking can increase the success of the drug discovery protocol. So has been the basic of the rational drug discovery protocols. Now, when you see uh, after this just introduction of docking, what are the different types of docking? Now, uh, their question normally arises: there are types of the docking? Yes, there are different types of docking. Now, docking can be classified into via two ways. Means type of the protocol which are utilized, and second line, the components which are involved in the docking. Normally, when you say rigid docking and the flexible docking, these are the two generalized component of the part of types of the docking. In a rigid docking, what happens? In a rigid docking, both the molecules, that is, both the parties in the docking protocol, are kept rigid within the 3D space of the each other, one another, sorry, or 3D space of each other. And after that, they are they are in the after that they are bring to their maximum optimum fit with the bringing together these two molecules in the docking protocols, where due to this rigid nature, due to this rigid geometry of the both the molecule, if they have optimum fit, if they have optimum conformation with each other, then only this molecule can fit with the receptor. I will give example of this to understand the rigid docking. A simple example, that is our opening of a lock by the key. If a key has a particular orientation to that of lock, then only the lock gets opened. So because these two independent molecules have a rigid orientation, that doesn't change its orientation. If the key does not have a optimum conformation to that of the lock, then the lock might not be get open. So that is the typical protocol of the rigid docking, where both the parties of the docking process, that is the protein and the ligands, are kept in a rigid conformation. Now, second comes the flexible docking. What happens in the flexible docking, where the molecule of the docking, that is normally the micromolecules, which are the, we can say, in a ligand structure, are kept in the flexible conformation. Why they are kept in the flexible conformation? Because they should have different types of conformation, or they should generate different types of conformation, so that the optimum conformation, which has a greater ability to bind with the active site, can be analyzed, which is totally absent in a rigid docking. In a rigid docking, we have to be in a rigid conformation of they both are kept in a rigid conformation. So chances of the failure in the rigid dockings are high to that of flexible docking, because in the flexible docking, molecule can achieve a flexible conformation, and this flexible conformation can be easily bind with the binding site of the particular protein. This is the typical sorry, this is a representation of the all these types of docking, that inducible fit docking, where the in silico modeling in the you can say the protein and the ligand structure can be achieved, which is also part of the flexible docking, that is the inducible fit docking. Now up to these different types of docking, there are another way of you can say that classification of docking, where the types of the types of the macromolecules, based on the types of the macromolecule, like protein docking, protein ligand docking, DNA drug docking, protein DNA docking. Means they, depending upon the type of the macro and the macromolecule, these docking protocols are classified. Now, when you see that typical stages of typical process of the docking, or the stages which are involved in the docking, there are four major stages of the docking. First is the target or receptor selection and its preparation, then ligand selection and its preparation, docking and evaluation of the docking result. Now, the first two stages, that is for ligand, protein and receptor selection and preparation, and ligand selection and preparation, these are the critical stages. Now, what happens in first stage? That is the preparation of the or preparation or selection of the protein ligand structures. Normally, when you see a simple protein structure, we have to go for a this can be analyzed, or it can be achieved with the homology modeling, or the which can be easily get downloaded from the protein data bank. There are free protein data bank like www.rcsb.org, from which you can easily get a structure of any protein. Now, when a person goes to the protein data bank, you can have an n number of structures for that particular protein. Out of that n number of structure, which is the right protein structure, that is a critical part of the protein structure identification. Now, for a protein structure selection, we have to select protein structure based on three major parameters: source, then its resolution, and its origin. Means what? There are 2 to 3 methods for the protein structure determination. Normally, we can say X-ray and the NMR. These are the two mostly used protein methods for the protein structure determination. Now, when you see X-ray diffraction, now X-ray diffraction has some advantages, some disadvantages also. Normally, when you see a protein structure which is determined by the X-ray diffraction, it has a no size limit. We can determine any protein structure or any size of protein with the X-ray diffraction technology, and it has a more accurate, or it has a more accuracy to that of NMR, because with the X-ray diffraction we have to analyze the single crystal of the we have to analyze the crystal of that particular protein. So the protein structure which is determined with the help of the X-ray diffraction has a unique structure. It has a unique structure. So that's why it has more accurate. It is more accurate, and due to its no size limit, you can determine any protein size of any size protein with the help of the X-ray diffraction. These X-ray diffracted or structure which are developed with the help of the X-ray diffraction or predominant over the NMR determined structure in the protein data bank. Okay. Now, when you see the NMR has the lowest accuracy. It has a lowest accuracy, and normally here the solution structure is determined. Here the solution structure is determined, and also it has some lacuna that it is NMR is normally used for a protein which has a 150 residues. It is used for the protein which has a 150 residues. Normally, when a biologically active protein does not have that less number of protein amino acid residues. So normally, when you see, when you go to a protein data bank, you can often get two types of structure. Suppose for a typical protein XXX, you have to download that protein structure from a protein data bank, and you got NMR and X-ray structure. Now, preferentially, you have to go for the X-ray structure, because X-ray structure is more accurate. It does not have any size issues, and here the unique structure has been reported. Only issue is that the hydrogens are normally missing from the X-ray diffracted structure. It is normally missing from the X-ray diffracted structure. So you have to keeping it, you have to add those hydrogen in the protein preparation that I will explain you later on. But you have to keep in mind that X-ray diffracted structure doesn't have a hydrogen in it. Now, third is the homology modeling that we have already discussed, where the amino acid sequence are known, and based on the amino acid sequence, the protein structures can be modeled, and it has a lower levels of precision, and normally these structures are depend upon the sequence similarity and equal identity. So last preference should be given to the homology modeling. So when you see a protein structure which is available in a protein bank, you got X-ray and NMR, you have to easily you have to go for an X-ray diffracted structure. Next terminology comes the resolution. Normally, when you see a resolution, normally resolution is nothing but the separation. Resolution is nothing but the separation. Now, look at the same protein which is resolved in three different dimensions, that is 5 angstrom, 3 angstrom, 1.5 angstrom. Normally, there is not a written rule that we have to go for that many angstrom resolved structure and all those things. But it is known that the lower the resolution value, higher is the separation. Higher will be the separation. Normally, when you see the that protein resolution that is normally reported for every protein in a protein data bank, normally the 2.5 angstrom is the ideal resolution to be selected for a protein structure. Means you have to select a source like X-ray diffraction, then you have to go for a resolution up to the 2.5 angstrom. And based on these two parameters, and third is you have to select a protein structure which is recently reported. Means after a certain modification, the newer and newer protein structures are continuously updated in the protein data bank. So you have to go for strictly the newer structure out of the structure which are reported over in the protein data bank, because the year of deposition is also there. So you have to go for recent structure. The resolution factor should be considered up to 2.5 angstrom, and if possible, you have to go for a X-ray diffraction structure. Now, after selection of the protein structure, now how the protein structure can be prepared. Normally this uh, stage of this protein structure preparation is also known as the polishing of the or refinement of the or cleaning of the protein. Normally, when you see when you download a protein structure from a free protein data bank, you often find a number of things in the protein structure like ions, water, soap, glycoside, antibody, chapla protein, missing items. Means these many parameters are there. You have to strictly delete each and each parameter from the protein structure. Means you have to clean the protein. That is you can say that the polishing of the protein or refinement of the protein. You have to uh, uh, remove all the ions which are present in the protein structure, water molecules, soap, glycosyl, antibody, chapla protein. Then you have to add the missing atoms like hydrogen, which are normally missed in the uh, X-ray diffracted structure. You have to add these hydrogen in the protein structure so that these protein structures can be used for the docking analysis. Means this is prepared or refined protein structure can be used for the docking analysis, because if hydrogens are not there, it might show some false interaction with the ligand structure. So that is not a true picture. So you have to prepare the protein structure which is generated from the or which is downloaded from the protein data bank is often far not a quality protein structure which is quality protein structure. So you have to refine the protein structure for the docking protocol. Now after that, next steps comes, if we got a protein, we have prepared that protein, we got a ligand. Now where we have to dock the molecule means identification of the interactive site. Now this interactive site and this cavity identification is also critical job, because this selection of the correct cavity, selection of the correct active site can leads to the uh, can you can say that can regulate the success of the docking protocol. Normally, when you see what interactive sites, and when you see active site or you can the interactive site of the protein, normally when you see define these interactive sites and or the active site of the protein, It is nothing but the cleaved or curvature in the protein structure where the ligand structure can be rested, where the ligand structure can be rested and they can show a binding interaction. Now, when you see interactive site, that there are three different methods or three major methods where they interact, which can be used for the identification of the interactive site on the protein. Normally, these methods are often classified into first method as experimental complex method, then analysis of structure properties, and lastly, you can say that the molecular docking on the whole protein. Now, the last one is a quite time-consuming, boring job, but when you see a first process that is experimental complex, this is quite safer method where we have to select a cavity or cavity which is reported for that reported for that particular protein for a particular set of scans. Means what? We have to we should have a identical mechanism for the ligand. Means similar compound behave similarly. Means we got a ligand which have a particular binding site, which has a particular type of interaction, which has a particular type of activity or similar biology. We have similar biological activity with our targeted compound. So then we can go for the active cavity which is reported for that particular ligand. That normally happens in active site direct inhibitors, where most of the times the inhibitors are developed on the basis of the native ligand structure or the binding cavity for that particular ligand structure, so that they can easily replace the native ligand from the binding cavity and shows the biological activity. The next protocol comes, that is the analysis of the structural properties. Now this is a quite interesting one where the cavity detection process can be carried out. Cavity detection process is differ in a you can say software tools that we are using. There are a number of protocols like blind docking, which is blind docker server, where automatically detect the size of that particular cavity based on the based on the cavity or based on the hydrophobic surface area, then electrostatic potential, and based on that the cavity can be identified, and on that cavity the molecule can be down. So this is more than an art than a definite method. Means the analysis of the structure property. You have to select each and every cavity, and from that identify the surface area, the potential, and you have to choose which is the best suited size or best suited you can say that cavity for our selected molecules on that our molecule, so that the docking can be carried out. Last is the molecular docking of the whole protein. Now this is a very time consuming process. If first two methods fails, then you have to go for this whole protein docking. Normally this whole protein docking is a boring thing because it can generate a surprising result. Means it can generate results which are not totally um, expectable expected, so that it leads to a lot of docking poses, and we can get a surprising. Means the molecule which are totally fail in vitro screening often gives, you can say, the good result in the docking process. That is due to the docking with the whole proteins. So selectively you have to restrict yourself to first two, that is experimental complex or analysis of the structure properties. If these two are not possible, then you have to go for the uh, molecular docking of the whole protein. Now, after that, what happens in exact docking protocol? The first two stage of the, that is target selection, then target preparation, we have already discussed. Then comes the ligand selection or ligand preparation. These ligands can be selected based on the literature or the molecule which we have. Then they can be drawn in the your software tools or any molecule drawing tool. That ligand structure should be minimized. That should be energetically minimized with the help of different force fields which are available in the software tools or your server. And after that, you can go for a docking process, and that after that docking process can be evaluated. Now there are some common softwares which are used for the docking purposes. These are the dock, AutoDock, FlexEdge, Fred, PLIBMD that we have, Frog, and Haddock. Haddock docking is commonly used for the protein and protein. And then you can say the DNA drug interaction, that intercalation. The AutoDock is also used for that processes. Then I want to introduce you certain about this homology modeling. Now, what happens in homology modeling? We have already discussed that if a protein structure is not available in the free protein data bank, you have to generate your own protein structure. Now, this own protein structure can be generated with the help of this amino acid sequence of that protein structures. And this, I mean, after this amino acid sequence, we can develop the primary and secondary structure, tertiary structure, and these structures can be used for the docking analysis. Normally, what happens in a homology modeling? When you see what is a homology modeling, given an unknown protein, make informed guesses on the 3D structure based on this sequence. Means what? What does it mean in homology modeling? We got a sequence of the amino acid, we got a template. Based on the sequence and the template, we can develop our own protein structure with some modification in the template. So that is the typical concept behind the protein structure. That is homology modeling, means from a journey from an amino acid sequence to a protein structure with the help of some template. It is known as a homology modeling. Then why it is called as a homology modeling? Means it should have a homologous template. Means what? The structure molecule or the protein which one has to be modeled should have a homologous template. Means the minimum modification in the amino acid sequence can be achieved. So that's why it is called as a homology modeling. Now, why this homology modeling is commonly required? Because when you see currently protein structure determination method, these are NMR, X-ray, these two methods are commonly used. The NMR is a protein site which has a limited size, and the resolution is common problem which are associated with NMR structures. When you go for a X-ray crystallography, it has a higher resolution, but it is very expensive and quite slow. Now, when you see uh, um, this, when you see data which is associated with the protein databases, look at the total of the protein structure which are available. That is 40,132 structures are available. And what about the sequence? Look at the huge difference between the protein structure and the sequence. That's why this homology modeling is commonly used. This homology modeling rapidly gives you protein structure that can be used for the molecular docking and which can be used for the drug discovery protocols. Okay. Now we are moving towards the second tools, which is commonly used as a QSAR. Now, what happens in a QSAR? Now, here we have uh, discuss about the docking, where the protein structure has to be ligand structure can be bind with the protein structure and shows is biologic shows is interactive behavior. But when you see a chemical structure or chemical process or chemical ligand structure, this structure of this chemical can influence its biological properties. And in QSAR, exactly the chemical structure has are correlated with the biological activity. And this is totally depend upon the simple principle that similar compounds behave similarly, which is given by the Sir Crowning-Hines in 1964. Means what happens in a QSAR? In a QSAR, the proper structure property of the or the property of the known chemical structures are correlated with the biological properties of that particular chemicals, and based on that, the newer model structures are developed which has similar potency. That is a typical understanding of the QSAR. Normally, what happens in a QSAR? Now, when you see a QSAR, the physical property of a drug in a part dictates its biological activity. Now, normally, this QSAR is a statistical approach to use these properties in the development of the mathematical model that relates with the physical properties of the biological activity, and shows how those models can be used to understand drug action and drug design. Means what? When you see this QSAR with the help of the interactive behavior or interaction with the protein structures, normally the chemical structure often regulate the interaction of the molecule with the receptor structure. And this QSAR is technology which is used to model the chemical properties with the biological activity and ultimately the interactive behavior of the molecule with the targeted ligand structure. Now, what happens exactly in the QSAR? Here, the mathematical models are generated based on the known properties or known chemical structures and its biological activity. And these mathematical models are used to analyze the upcoming molecules or newer chemical entity and is used to predict the behavior of these chemical entities. Normally, this QSR is used to find out the consistent relationship between the biological activity and the molecular property, so that these rules can be used to evaluate the activity of the newer compounds, and it establishes an equation of relationship between models of properties and its biological activity. Now, when you see a typical flow of a QSR analysis, normally a QSR analysis or QSR correlate within a congeneric series of compound and their chemical and biological activities, either with certain structural features or with atomic group or molecular descriptors. Now here the term comes descriptors. Normally what happens in a, what is a descriptor, that we'll discuss later on. But what happens in QSR? In QSR, the property of the molecules is often correlated with their chemical or biological activities. Means what? We can model how the molecule behave in a biological system with the properties. Means what? The properties of the molecule regulate the behavior, or the structure of the molecule regulate the properties, and these properties regulate the activities. So we can correlate the structure with the activity, or structure with the property, which can be correlated with the activity, so that these structures or these uh, models can be used to predict the behavior of the newer molecules. Normally, what happens in this QSR, a congeneric series is often considered. Nowadays, there are advances in QSR which are coming like 6D, 5D, and 4D, where the congeneric concept has been minimized or congeneric concept has been ruled out. There are certain advantages, advanced QSR models like GQSR is also there, where the group-based QSR, where the molecule is fragmented into the smaller pieces, and the contribution of the each and every fragment with the biological activity has been considered. So this congeneric, but traditionally the congeneric series has, one has to be considered. Now, why this congeneric series has to be considered? Uh, uh, I will explain just a minute. Now, why this congeneric series has to be considered? Now, why a molecule analog should belong to a congeneric series? Because when you see a congeneric series often deals with the molecules which are from the same origin. And these same origin molecules often have similar physiochemical properties. And with these similar physiochemical properties, they have ability to bind with the particular receptor via similar mechanism. And these similar mechanisms can be interpreted with the similar biological potential. So, to correlate this similar behavior, to correlate the similar types of mechanism, or correlate similar types of chemical property, the congeneric series has to be considered. So, when you see a data for a QSR series or data for a QSR data for QSR analysis, is concept is all one concept is commonly considered, that all analogs which are belonging in the which are used in the QSR should belong in the congeneric series. Means they should have similar chemical space, they should have similar types of chemical orientation, they should possess similar types of chemical properties, so that they can be easily correlated with the biological activity. The second point that one has to be considered in the data which is used for the QSR analysis is that all analogs should have similar mechanism of action. Means what? I will explain with some example. Now, congeneric series, I think we have cleared that congeneric series. But what happens? The same mechanism of action. Now, when you see uh, antihypertensive action. Now, antihypertensive action has a 3 to 4 major routes, like AC inhibition, then beta blocker, calcium channel blocker, and vasodilators. Now, consider the molecule which have ability to bind with the beta receptor, and consider the molecule which have ability to bind with the ACE. Now, these two molecules have different chemical orientation. These two molecules have different their physical chemical size. These two molecules have different physiochemical property space. So, these two molecules has their own orientation. They have their own types of way to bind with the receptor. they have their own types of physiochemical properties. So we can't correlate a beta blocker with the AC inhibitor in a single data set, because these two does not have similarity in their chemical space. So ultimately the similarity in the property space will be minimized, and ultimately the biological similarity will be ruled out. So the molecule that one has to be considered in a QSAR should belong to a congeneric series, but should have similar way of its action. Means we can't consider a beta blocker and an AC inhibitor in a single data set, which can lead to a false result. Third critical point that one has to be considered in a QS analysis is that all analogs should bind in a similar fashion. All analogs should bind in a similar fashion. Means what? Uh, look at another example, that reverse transcriptase inhibitor. Normally, what has happened in the reverse transcriptase, the mechanism of action is same, biological activity is also same, antiviral via inhibition of reverse transcriptase. But we can't compare zodouidine class of molecule and nevirapine class of molecule in a single data set, because nevirapine is a tricyclic ring structure and zodouidine is a pyrimidine like analogs. Means these are nucleotides type of analog. Both have a different chemical space, both have different property space, both have different biological uh, binding or affinity space, although their biological potential is same. So because when you see a nevirapine class of molecule, they are allosteric inhibitor. They doesn't bind with the active site, they bind to the nearby site. Okay, while you can say in the zodouidine class of molecule, they have active site direct inhibitor. They directly replaces the natural substrate or natural ligand in the protein structure, uh, and bind themselves into the protein and regulate their action. So both have similar mechanism of action, that is reverse transcriptase inhibitor. Both have same uh, binding potential, that is antiviral action, but they have different binding fashion. They doesn't have similar binding fashion. So the data which has to be one considered in a QSR analysis is should possess congeniality series, should have same mechanism of action, should possess a similar binding, or should have similar fashion in a binding or similar binding fashion. The fourth point that one consider in a data for QSR is that effect of isosteric replacement can be predicted. That is, effect of the isosteric replacement means what? Carbon bonded with the double bonded with the carbon can be replaced with the carbon double bonded with nitrogen, carbon double bonded with oxygen. They can be considered in a data in a QSR analysis. That effect of this isosteric replacement can be considered, and the binding affinity can be correlated with the interactive energies. Binding affinity can be correlated with the interactive energy, and the biological activity can be correlated with the binding affinity. Means what? Binding affinity is correlated with the interactive energy, and this binding affinity is correlated with biological activity. Means this biological activity can be correlated with the interactive energy. Means we can consider the binding interaction or or interactive energy of the molecule with the receptor as a binding as a molecular biological active of that particular molecule. So the interactive energies can be correlated with the physiochemical properties, and this interact and this can be calculated with the help of the QSR analysis. Normally, the terminology comes into the in earlier discussion about the descriptors. Now, what is a descriptors? Now, when you say a descriptors by the name indicates these are the description of anything or something. That is a description of the something. Now, what is the descript? What is that? What are the descriptors? Why? Which why they are used, and which thing they describe. Normally, these descriptors are often used to correlate a structure to the activity. Means what? These descriptors are the representation of the molecular properties of the molecules which are used in QSR analysis. And these descriptors can be act as an independent variable. They can act as an independent variable, and they can describe different aspects of the same molecule. They can compare different molecular structure. They can compare different conformation of the same molecule. Means what? The different conformation, the different aspect of the same molecule, different molecular structure from the same molecule can be compared with the help of a numerical value or numerical indicator, which is known as a descriptor, because they can describe different physiochemical properties of that particular molecules that has to be correlated with the biological activity. Now, what happens exactly in a QSR analysis? In a QSR analysis, normally it is uh, QSR analysis. For a good QSR analysis, you should have good quality data. That is the first thing one has to be considered as data selection. Then these data should be represented as a molecular model with the chemoinformatical tools. We have to calculate descriptors, means the numerical values which can describe the data in property of the molecule in a numerical data. And after that, the training and test set selection. Normally, what happens in the training and test set? Here, the concept of internal validation is applied in a QSR analysis. Normally, in a training and test set selection, in a data set, for a good QSR analysis, you should always have 70% of the molecules to training and 30% of the molecules to test set. Now, what happens in this training and test set? This 70% of the data set is used to develop a QSR model, and this 30% of the data set is used to validate that QSR model internally to predict the interactive predictive behavior, to analyze the predictive behavior of the developed model. Means what? If model the developed QSR model has a successfully predicted the binding biological activity of the molecules from the internal data set, then these QSR models can be used to develop, can be used for the analysis of the external data set. So that's why the molecules which are used in a data set are often bifurcated into training and test set. The training set is used to develop a QSR model, while the test set is used to predict or to validate the developed QSR model. After training the test selection, then comes the variable selection, then statistical evaluation, model interpretation, and with the help of this model interpretation, we can develop a lead structure and the lead modification. Now, there are different types of QSR which are commonly used as 1D, 2D, 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D, GQSR. In the 2D, I will skip this 2D and 3D because these are common one. I want to discuss with you this GQSR. Normally, what happens in a GQSR? This GQSR is a breakthrough patent pending methodology with the VLab MDS, because we commonly work with the VLab MDS. Now, this GQSR significantly enhanced the use of QSR as an approach for a new molecule design, as a predictive tool for activity. In this method, significantly superior to conventional 3D and 2D QSR. What happens in a GQSR normally? Look at the structure. Normally, when you go for a conventional QSR study, you can calculate the property of the whole structures and all those things, and we can correlate this property with the biological activity. Now, what happens in a GQSR? In a GQSR, these molecules are fragmented. These molecules are fragmented into smaller pieces. Now, here we got a 7 different fragments from a same molecule, and each and every fragment is correlated with the biological activity. The contribution of the whole fragment, rather than the whole molecule, here the fragment contribution is considered, and this fragment contribution towards the biological activity is calculated, and based on that, the new model can be generated and the newer molecules can be developed. Now, what happens exactly in GQSR? I will simplify for you. In a traditional QSR, what happens? The contribution of the molecule as a single contribution. Suppose volume, the contribution of all the molecule considered as a volume, but the contribution of all the volumes is not significant toward the biological activity. Only the fragment which is present at the R7, that is F, which is contributed in terms of its volume. So the GQSR significantly identified we have to manipulate the volume in only R7 position. The other volume we doesn't bother about. So this R7 volume can be manipulated, and this R7 volume can lead to the newer active molecule. Similarly, at R2, where the I is denominate given. This I shows the S log P, which is positively contributing. Means selectively we have to select the substitution which has a greater lipophilicity over R2 position. Means what? In a QSAR, we have to modify all the molecules as a whole, but in a GQSAR, in the group-based QSAR, you can easily fragment the molecule in the smaller pieces, and you can correlate these fragments with the biological activity, and based on that, the molecules can be designed. So this GQSR is more precise, more selective rather than the conventional 2D and 3D QSARs. Now, how the QSR model which is generated has been validated. This QSR models can be validated with 4 different parameters, that is fitting regression coefficient, then Q square, that is the predictability, outliers, and prediction reliability of the external set. Now, first 3 parameters are inbuilt with the model generation. The last one is quite critical, because nowadays the in number of international agents which regulate the QSR work often gives often uh, they are strictly indicating that you have to go for an external set for the validation of the QSR model. Means if your model has external internal validation or internal predictability, it should possess a good or reliable prediction for the external set. That's why the QSR models can be useful. That is the overall utility of the QSR model. So for that, the external set are normally nowadays used for the prediction of the for the validation of the QSR models. Now, what are the fundamental advantages which are associated with this QSR? Normally, QSR can be used for the quantifying and relationship between the structure and the activity, which can provide an understanding of the effect of the structure with the activity, which may not be straightforward when a large data of amount of data is generated. Also, there is potential to make prediction, and the interpolation and extrapolation can be easily can be readily justified. Now, these QSR results can be used to understand interaction between a functional group of a molecule with the greatest activity with those with the target. And to do this, it is important to interpret any derived QSR in the terms of fundamental chemistry of the set of analog, including the outliers. Means what? This QSR can be easily utilized. It can be successfully used for the identification of the critical functional group which are having critical interaction with the biological targets, and which can be used for the modifying the interactive behavior, which can be used to analyze the molecular behavior, which can be used to minimize the particular molecular behavior in terms of toxicity and all those things. So normally this QSR is quite more advantageous than any other tool, because now in a routine you can in silico you can say in silico toxicity prediction tools, which are now ADMETSAR and all those things. Here the QSR models are readily the QSR is the technology which is commonly used, because the models which are generated for the toxicity prediction, these are the nothing but the QSR models which are based on the large amount of data set which are incorporated in that particular web servers, and from that we can easily identify the toxicity behavior of the molecules and all those things. So these are the basic advantages which are associated with the QSR. Normally, if a QSR has excellent advantages, but there are some critical issues where the QSR can be fails. Normally, first the false correlation. Normally, this happens where the correlation matrix is not fully considered, where the descriptors from a single space are used. Normally, when you see a typical biological activity, and you have to consider the biological activity or correlative biological activity with physical chemical properties, these 3 physical chemical properties has to be considered: electronic, steric, and your lipophilic. In a more advantageous QSA like 3D and 4D and COMFAN, the lipophilicity properties are not considered. But you have to strictly go for 2 different types of property in a single line, that is your lipophilicity and the steric properties. Sorry, electronic and steric properties. But most of the time in a QSR model where the complete property space or utility of all these different types of properties are not considered. So that's why this QSR commonly fails in case of certain cases. Also, overfitting means inability. Overfitting means normally data selection of the data set, the large amount of data is not there, and you have to strictly utilizing a smaller size data set. Then normally the QSR common fails. Then inability to interpret QSR model. Normally this is the most important uh, reason behind important reason in the failure of the QSR, because QSR is only gives the guidelines. It is a job of that particular medicinal chemist or people who person who are working in that QSR or using this QSR technology to interpret that QSR model, and their inability to interpret the QSR model can generate a false result. So the interpretation is a critical point for any computational tool. Means you can go for docking. Docking can give a result. Docking can give a docking score. But how that has to be interpreted, the interpretation thing should be with the computational chemist or the person who is working on that particular system. Uh, I think. Hello, ma'am. Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello. Uh, Hello.
Yes, sir, please.
Okay. I think I will skip the pharmacophore part. Okay. So
Yes.
I have compiled some web servers for you all the uh, participant that which can be easily identified, which can be easily used for the admit prediction, that Molinspiron, pre-admit. Then public web chemoinformatical tools, like these are the different tools which can be used. And this is a Swiss ADME, which is generated by Swiss Institute of Bioinformatics. It is a free tool to identify the pharmacokinetic behavior of the molecule, and which is a continuously validated tool. It has an excellent utility that it can generate GI absorption, BB permeability, then metabolism tool also. Then it can give idea about the Lipinski Ghosh violations and all those things. Then this is a laser toxicity prediction, which can be used for the toxicity prediction of the molecules. Then this is the phytochemical database where the uh, plant databases are there, which can be used for the identification of the phytochemical structures. Then this is the Indian medicinal part, phytochemist and therapeutic database. Then this is species metabolite relationship database. Then PhytoHub. These are the another databases. Then DNP, Dictionary of Natural Products. Then Biophytomol. It is strictly for the antimicrobacterial phytomolecules and the phytoextract, which is generated by CDRI. Then for nutrigenomics, we have different databases, that AYO5. This database is open source database that can be freely accessible. It gives several contains basic nutrigenomics. It is an early prototypes of database nutrigenomics. Then AGMED, this is specific database for soybean genomics.
Hmm? Huh?
Then then GXE, which is a database for gene environmental interaction. Then vProtein, that is database for identifying optimum amino acid components for plant-based foods. This is it is made based on the information of several foods listed in United States. Agriculture base, then barley base is another specific database for plant micro air. Now, what are the advantages of these computational tools? Normally, when we have just discussed two tools, now these tools can be used to test a system without having to create a system for real, that is rebuilding of the real life system, which can be expensive and take a long time. It can to predict what might happen to a system in the future, to train the people to use a system without putting them at a risk, then to investigate a system in a great deal. That is the basic advantages of these computational tools. So that's it from my side. I am thankful to Dr. Tamboli and his team for giving me opportunity to discuss few things with you. Thank you very much. Madam, hello.
Hi, yes. Thank you so much, sir, for such a informative and wonderful session. Now the session is open for discussion. I request all the participants to unmute your mic and ask question directly, or you can place your question in WhatsApp group.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
हाँ सर, एक क्वेश्चन था मेरा.
Hmm.
Can you change the physicochemical properties of the BCS3 or BCS4 class of drugs by applying this molecular docking?
No, sir, because uh, the basic structures are same, but we can with the docking we can identify what are the basic reasons for their failures or their side effects and all those things. The off-target effect can be easily identified with this molecular docking because the physicochemical changes are not at all calculated in case of the docking. Docking is only used for the interactive analysis between two independent molecules.
Okay. So I'm asking from the pharmaceutics point of view. Actually, I'm not
Yeah,
I'm not having that much knowledge
actually,
in instant
yeah,
molecular docking, but
yes,
I'm
yes.
thinking it's prospective point of view pharmaceutics and pharmaceutical formulation. So
Okay,
actually, BCS3 and BCS4 classification, you know very well.
yeah.
They are very much insoluble, non-soluble drugs are
Docking
there.
can be used in Sutik's point of view for the polymer interaction, means which polymers can be used and what are the possible reasons to change in the physicochemical property like solubility and all those things. Okay, what are the
Hmm.
if suppose in case of a protein drug polymer interaction, if the solubility has been increased with the particular type of polymer, then what are the reasons behind that? Which type of interactions are there? That can be analyzed with the help of the docking, sir.
Okay. So isn't it possible by adding some the functional groups by means of docking? So can we enhance the solubility? Isn't it possible, sir?
Mm, or it is possible, but we have to modify the chemical structure of that particular substance. No?
Yeah. So I'm saying regarding the addition of functional groups. So if
Yes.
by means of addition of functional groups, can we change the physicochemical properties
Yeah, it
by
can
means
be
of?
changed.
Pardon, sir?
Yes, it can be changed, sir, after the addition of certain functional group on that particular structure.
Yes, sir. So molecular docking will definitely helps in the formulating or pre-formulating the dosage form, no? Actually, pre-formulating the analytical structure of that API.
No, means actually this docking is commonly used for the uh, analysis of the interactive behavior. Okay,
Molecular interaction. Yes.
molecular interaction means which type of polymers you can go for a QSPR type of approach, sir, also where the
Okay.
you can go for a correlation between the physiochemical properties of the polymer with the help of with the drugs or the your release profile. So which combination will be ideal for your drug formulation to achieve that particular type of release? That is already reported in number of papers. Can go for QSPR, quantitative structure property relationship also.
Okay, sir. Okay.
uh,
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes.
What are the
Hello.
basic requirements of docking?
What are the basic requirement of?
Docking, molecular
Okay.
docking.
Okay. So fundamentally, if you go for docking analysis, you have to select a proper protein, and for the selection of a proper protein, you have to go for a proper structure, then source, then you can say that uh, uh, protein structure, the amino acid sequence, the completeness of that particular sequence, the native ligand structure. So correct choice of protein may lead to the good docking protocol.
And which software of docking is giving us satisfactory results?
Actually, softwares are just tools, ma'am. Okay, if a person is not efficiently working, then software doesn't do anything. That competition, that person who is working on that particular software has to do or has to set a docking protocol correctly. Okay, simple change in the docking protocol can lead to a major change in the results. Okay.
Means by using two different softwares, we can achieve same result.
No, we can't say that because both have different. You can say that protocol means one is suppose Autodoc, which is a certain different protocol base. VLife is PLP based, so they have different working protocol. Their assumption means they are model that real system to a computer model, so they have certain levels of assumption. So assumption in certain case of the methyl is considered as a probe, in certain case of propyl is considered as a probe. So certain distance can be certain calculation can be different. So we can't say that this can't say that similar results cannot be observed. In certain cases similar result observed, but in certain cases close to the some results are close. That suppose now in case of VLife MDS, we got a aromatic type of interaction, but in case of a Discovery Studio, we doesn't have a aromatic interaction. We got a piper stacking interaction. So this calculation methodology is sometimes different, certain sometimes different in two different software. So we can't say that the satisfactory result, but normally we can say that Autodoc has a good result potential. Then phase is also good. Then VLife MDS Biopredator is also good. The software, we can't say that this is bad or this is good, but which is
Yes.
updated software, which has a continuously updated mode. So that software is normally preferred. We can You can also go for patch docking. Patch docking is a very efficient tool, which is a free patch docking. You have to select a protein, you have to develop molecule in case of PDB, and you can go patch docking. After patch docking, the FireDoc comes, which can optimize the already result of the patch docker system. So that FireDoc can optimize your molecules.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to request Ms. Sonali Gurov ma'am to sum up this session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, madam. It was very nice presentation, sir. On behalf of Bharati Vidyapeeth College of Pharmacy, Kolhapur, myself, Ms. Sonali Guram, Assistant Professor, Adarsh College of Pharmacy, Vita, it's my privilege to sum up this session in this FDP. Thank you very much, sir, Dr. Proful Chaudhary, sir, for your valuable guidance in silico tools in nutrigenomics in very well detailed manner. Sir has emphasized on principles of nutrigenomics, then types of nutrient-gene interaction, then chemoinformatics, and drug discovery processing in silico study. Sir has also focused on major aspects of chemoinformatics like information management, uses and application, then basic modeling strategies, then docking and preparation steps of molecular docking, and also homology modeling. Sir also discussed the genetic variations, then indirect drug design and rational drug design, and typical docking workflow, and also quantitative structure activity relationship studies. Thank you once again, sir. We wish you great success and health ahead for you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I, Miss Anga, on behalf of Bharati Vidyapeeth College of Pharmacy, Kolhapur, take this opportunity to thank our eminent speaker for his wonderful presentation and valuable time. Thank you so much, sir. Now I kindly request all the participants to turn on your camera so that we can have a photo with our eminent speaker. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chaudhary sir, for nice presentation.
Dear participants, here I would like to announce that today's session for day 4 are concluded and link for feedback and attendance will be displayed on WhatsApp group shortly. I request all the participants to join tomorrow using the same link 10 minutes before the actual time for ST sponsored FDP or Nutrigenomics Unveiled Frontier in Healthcare organized by Bharati Vidyapeeth College of Pharmacy, Kolhapur. Thank you.